Hey guys, welcome to Knockers on the Bottom post-game show, Cowboys versus Rams. I'm your host, Jay Miller if you like. Just want to get into some of the things that I saw today while watching the game. Mozzie Smith actually impressed me today. He held up pretty well in several run drills, or not run drills, but run plays that the Rams are running. He commanded double teams well. He got off the ball well. I remember there was one where Mozzie Smith got good push, but Carson allowed the completion on the play, so it was a pass play earlier in the game. This is on the defense's first drive of the game. So the Rams kicked off the ball. The Cowboys set up on defense first. So Mozzie Smith got some good push. It was pretty much the first or second play of the game. Got some good push up the middle. But I know the wide receiver was going to the outside. Carson allowed the completion. He was in good position. It wasn't a major gain. It wasn't anything to worry about. But it was nice to see Mozzie Smith get some push on that play. Mozzie Smith also got push on another Carson completion that went a little bit deeper down the field for a first down. They were kind of picking on Carson early in the game, but Mozzie was pretty much holding his own. Mozzie had a nice chase down and a tackle for loss on the running back. So he was pushing up the middle of the pocket, and then the running back went to the offense's right, the defense's left. Cowboys are on defense at this time, and Mozzie Smith continued to pursue the play and got a good tackle for loss from behind. So I did see Mozzie pretty consistently getting push in the middle of the pocket and kind of collapsing that offensive line a little bit. Speaking of Carson had a couple of okay plays. I mean, he did allow some completions, but every DB in the NFL is going to allow completions. One of the things I was looking for based on some of my earlier videos was Carson kind of getting to see some routes from players that he hadn't had a beat on in the previous week's pass. And in the Cowboys practice, he goes against many different players in our team, but he gets to see them every single day, right? So he gets to go against Tyron Billy Johnson, and he gets to go against Jalen Cropper, and he gets to go against Jalen Tolbert, and all the Jalens, and so he gets to kind of see how those guys move, how gets to read their routes on a daily basis. It was nice to see him pretty decent in coverage against a lot of the people that he doesn't get to see on a daily basis. Yes, he got to practice against these guys Thursday and Friday. Then we had a preseason game today, so it's the third time he saw them. But they were definitely, throwing some different routes at him that he hadn't necessarily seen in practice. And even more so than the routes is the body language, right? Because you can call the same route for three different receivers and they run them three different ways. They all have different cues as to what they're going to do. So it was nice to see him get to the top of the route, see those hips drop, see that shoulder movement, and be able to make some reads based off that and keep himself in good position. There were some completions against him, but for the most part, he was there to make the tackle. It wasn't huge gains afterwards. We'll get into some people who had some huge gains after their tackles. But for the most part, he played pretty well. I also noticed Junior Fajoko on a couple of plays. I didn't expect to see much from him today, but there were a couple plays actually where he beat his man and the quarterback just got the ball out. But he was either getting pressure or close to getting a pressure, but then the quarterback got the ball out. He didn't have any sacks or anything, but he did show up a little bit more than he was showing up against our guys. So when the Cowboys are practicing their offense against their defense, Junior Fajoko pretty much was non-existent. But in this game, I did see him get loose a couple of times and seem like he might have been able to get some pressure or at least close to a pressure or two. Rico Dowdle, I saw him have a couple of plays, one specifically off the right side where he looked great. He got like 9 yards on the carry, kind of burst through the line. The line was opening up a hole. He hit it good, and he got a few yards off of that carry. And it seemed like most of the carries that he got, he was looking pretty good. I like the pass from Cooper Rush to Jalen Brooks down the left sideline for about 42 yards. Jalen Brooks ran right by the guy. As a matter of fact, Cooper Rush, he put some oomph on that thing for him anyway. And he got it there, and Brooks was able to make the catch. But it looked like Brooks actually had 2 or 3 steps on the guy, and if they would have actually got the ball out in front of him, he might have been able to score. So it was nice to see Jalen Brooks, get a couple of good catches in there and kind of beat his defender so dramatically, especially being in this battle with Jalen Tolbert. But hey, Jalen Tolbert didn't play today. Jalen Brooks did. So I don't know how much of a battle we actually have going on there. We'll have to see what happens in the coming weeks. I got to see Jalen Cropper bobble the ball a couple of times. He caught the ball that he was bobbling, but he didn't quite bring it in as smoothly as he needed to. It hit him. It hit him right in the hands. And a couple of times it hit him in the hands and he was good to go. But there was a specific time where he kind of got the ball, bobbled a little bit, and then all of a sudden it hits the ground. Also, I saw T.J. Bass allowed a couple of pressures. One particularly on a stunt where he was supposed to be catching the guy looping around on the inside, and he couldn't, keep his integrity as far as blocking is concerned, and he allowed the pressure to get right into the quarterback's face, which kind of ruined the play there. One of the other things that stood out to me was the secondary play. I mean, we had Bell with an interception. We had Hall with an interception. We had the linebacker, number 59, with an interception. We had number 38 with an interception. So there were a couple of guys in there who were getting their hands on the ball. I know everybody's been kind of talking about Mike Zimmer and figuring out, hey, is this going to be the same type of defense as it was under Dan Quinn, where the Cowboys are forcing turnovers continuously? And there has been some question as to whether Zimmer would allow these guys to kind of force turnovers in the same way that they were before. But seeing the positions these guys were in, and they were playing pretty vanilla defenses. I did see them a couple of times mug that A-gap and then drop out. I saw them a couple of times mug the A-gap and then send a blitz. If you want to know what I mean by mug the A-gap, it's just that gap right over the center. The linebackers kind of line up on either side of his shoulders while the defensive tackles and the defensive ends are in there as well. So you got your 4 down linemen over your 5 offensive linemen. But then you have 2 linebackers kind of standing up over either shoulder of the center. Sometimes they drop out when the ball is snapped and go into coverage. Sometimes they both come, and so you got a situation where it's 6 on 5. Sometimes one drops out, one comes on the blitz. So that's what I mean by mug the A-gap. I did see them do that a couple of times, but not as often as you'll probably see it during the regular season. For the most part, they played pretty simple coverage, but they looked pretty good. Trey Lance early in the game was much more effective than late in the game. I think that has to do a lot with the offensive line and some of the receivers he had out there. So early on in the game, he had a nice completion to Stevenson on the outside, or Stevens, the tight end who's coming back from the torn ACL. He had a couple of nice completions to him in a row. That was pretty good. He was very decisive while doing that. He had a nice run, a scramble. He had a third down where he missed Peyton Hendershot, which kind of sucked because he probably would have had a nice completion and kept that drive alive had he made a good throw. But then he also scrambled on a third down and got a first down. So he had a screen to the other side for one of the running backs too that looked pretty good. So all in all, it was kind of an up and down day for Trey Lance, I would say. He had some plays where he looked really, really good, really decisive. He had some other plays, especially later on in the game, where he was holding on to the ball and not quite making decisions quickly. I know in the telecast I was watching, they were saying stuff like, oh, they're going to love this when they look at it. Everybody was covered. It was great. Trey Lance had nowhere to go with the ball. But I talked about this a little bit earlier in some of the episodes. He has to let that ball go. If it ends up being intercepted, I mean, we saw on the other side, the other dude was throwing interceptions all day. He didn't care. He was letting the ball go. You just kind of got to let the ball go, man. These games don't count. I know it's being evaluated, but it's not like the Cowboys are going to cut Trey Lance. They're not going to do it. They spent a 4th-round pick on him. If anything, he'll just be demoted to the number 3 quarterback instead of the number 2 quarterback. There were too many times today where I saw him get to the top of his drop and he kind of held the ball, looked around, held the ball. There was one specifically late in the game where he held the ball and he scrambled out to his right. He kind of ended up getting sacked, like 56, Cooper Beebe. He had a great block, right? The guy was kind of pushing him up the field. Beebe sat down on him. He pretty much had his guy, but instead of Trey Lance letting go of the ball, he scrambled to the open side of the blocker. Now, what I mean by that is Cooper Beebe had his guy pretty much walled off, but he wasn't 100% square. I could see his jersey numbers, so he was turned a little bit towards me. Now, instead of scrambling to Cooper Beebe's jersey number side, which is what Trey Lance should have done, he scrambled to the other side of the guy. So he scrambled to the right instead of to the left. Now, what happens there is, BB can't hold that guy anymore because if he keeps pulling on that jersey, it's a hold. And so he had to let go of the guy. Trey Lance ended up breaking the first tackle of the would-be sack, but then the second guy hit him in the foot, got him down. But when they flipped the screen and we got to see the all-22 perspective of that, or the offense's perspective, sorry, not the all-22, the offense's perspective of that, you saw that number 45, I want to say, came open right over the middle. He ran, it looked like a short dig route, and he came open, wide open over the middle. So if Trey Lance didn't get to the top of that route and decide, hey, I need to make a move, I need to scramble, if he just read that route or read all the routes, because he's the quarterback, he has to see what everybody's doing, and hit his back foot and let it go, it actually would have been a completion for a gain. There was nobody there in front of that guy. There was a linebacker kind of buzzing underneath, but he was late. He was late to it. So as long as Trey Lance was on time, he would have gotten that completion there. He had another play earlier in the game that was pretty awesome, though, where it was very similar. It wasn't Cooper Beebe. It was a combination of the number 1 and number 2 line, because Chuma Edoga was in there and Brock Hoffman was in there. But then you also had, TJ Bass in there and Awesome Richards in there. And, God, number 75, he had some really bad reps today. And that's Josh Ball. He shouldn't be on this team anyway, but that's another story. But anyway, Trey Lance pretty much, Awesome Richards got done on the play, and the guy came in with a free shot on Trey Lance, and Trey Lance slipped out of the tackle and then ran for the first down. So that was the awesome part about Trey Lance that we get to see, that his feet and that his upper body strength and his awareness allow him to escape certain things that some quarterbacks wouldn't necessarily be able to escape. But on the same token, like Jerry Jones talked to in the beginning of the game, they want to see him play more from the pocket. They want to see him be more decisive. They want to see him drop back, read the defense, and throw the ball. We know that Trey Lance can make plays on the move. We know he can get out there on the run and scramble and do those things. That's never really been a question. The question is going to be, if there is a long-term injury, can he come in and see some of these defenses and read it and react? Can he do a play-action pass, pop his head back up after having his back turned to the defense, know where everybody's at, and get the ball out in a timely fashion and get it delivered where the receiver can catch it and do something with it. So I thought that he needed to work on that a little bit more. But first preseason game, so, we'll take that with a grain of salt. Malik Davis got a lot of run today. Didn't see a ton of juice from him. There were certain times where he, got his 3, his 4, his 5 dirty yards. And there is something to be said about a running back getting the dirty yards. The dirty yards are important to an offense's ability to kind of keep the ball going and keep the drive alive and keep yourself in second and third and manageable. You want to stay ahead of the chains. A lot of times when they say stay ahead of the chains, because it's a buzzword, that's what everybody says, right? You don't want to be in 2nd and 8. You don't want to be in 2nd and 9. You want to be in 2nd and 6, 2nd and 7, 2nd and 5. On 3rd down, you don't want to be 3rd and 6. You don't want to be 3rd and 5. You kind of want to be 3rd and 2, 3rd and 4. So your running game is meant to help you stay there, right? That's why the measure is 4 yards a carry. If you turn around and you hand it to your running back and you get 4 yards on 1st down, 2nd and 6, that's super appealing to a play caller. Now we have the defense on their heels. They don't know what we're going to call because 2nd and 6 is so manageable that we have several different plays that we can go to. Coincidentally, if you're handing it off, you get 1 yard, you get 2 yards, you get a negative yard. Well, then it's much different calling a 2nd and 11 play, a 2nd and 8 play, a 2nd and 9 play, as opposed to the favorable positions that we're talking about. So I did notice quite a few times of Malik Davis not necessarily getting us too behind the chains, but also not too ahead of the chains, and that kind of caused some issues for the offense. Some of the other things I did notice is whatever the offensive line that was in from about the second quarter on, that's not going to be it, dude. Like number 75, Josh Ball was getting blown up. And let me preface this by saying, if an offensive lineman has, say, 60 reps, right, and they have, I don't know, 7 bad reps. That's a bad day. That's a bad day at the office, right? If an offensive lineman has 60 plays and they have 2 bad reps, that's a good day at the office, or an average day at the office. You kind of want to make sure that, and we get it. We're critical, but it's the NFL, right? Like, all these players are so good. There's such a slight margin for error. So yes, it sounds like I'm being a little bit overkill, like 80 to 85% of his reps are good. But those reps that he lost badly, and they made big disadvantages for the offense. If Trey Lance wasn't as mobile of a quarterback as he is, I don't know if he would have necessarily gotten some of those passes off or gotten some yards with his legs. If some of those guys have to come in and play while Dak Prescott is back there, or God forbid, if it's not Dak and it's Cooper Rush and he's back there, it's going to be a little bit of trouble. We had some screen passes, right? You want to invite the rush up the field for the screen pass. That's part of kind of what you're doing there. You want them to think, hey, I beat my guy. I'm going to go get that quarterback. I'm salivating at the mouth to go hit that man, and boop, the ball goes right over the head, and now we're off to the races. But they were letting him in way too easy. And a lot of times it looked like the quarterback it was almost a panic. This is a play where the quarterback is supposed to fail the rush, where the quarterback is supposed to be waiting to the last second to get the ball out. That kind of comes with the territory on a screenplay. And it seemed like some of these linemen just didn't understand the technique or couldn't execute the technique, because Trey Lance was getting leveled on screen passes like before he could get the ball out to the running back. And it's okay to take a hit on the screen pass if you're the quarterback, but it shouldn't be as quick as what was happening. It was like these guys just gave a full jailbreak up front. And then on top of that, if you're going to get the jailbreak up front, at least what you want to do is get out and get some bodies on the ball, right? Okay, I allow my quarterback to take this hit, but I'm down here planting this linebacker. I'm down here planting this cornerback. I'm down here creating space for my running back once he catches it to be able to get out in the open and do some things. But not only were they not holding the blocks correctly, they weren't even getting out and executing the blocks on the secondary and on the linebackers like they were supposed to. Like, there was number 90 kept making so many plays on the screen passes because nobody was getting a body on him. There was one screen pass early in the game where, honestly, they would have it was Brock Hoffman. If he would have just got a block on his guy, right, he would have, they probably would have scored. But the reason why Brock Hoffman didn't get a block on his guys, because he let his first guy go so much up the field and didn't touch him that he was too far down the field to even be able to cut off the linebacker that was coming to hit the running back once he caught the ball. There's no reason for Brock Hoffman to be 15 yards upfield, so much so that he can't block the linebacker after the running back catches it. He should be leaking out pretty much right in. There should be a wall. When that running back catches it, there should be a nice little tiny wall right in front of him. It doesn't have to be all your linemen, but it can be like 2, 3. There should be a tiny wall right in front of the running back right as he catches it. What happens? No, there's no wall. Brock Hoffman's up the field. He's trying to, at this point, he looks like he's looking for the safety. And then he realizes, oh, the running back caught it. I have to turn back and get this linebacker. But the linebacker's already underneath him, bringing the running back down. It's a 4-yard play because your center is freaking 8, 9 yards up the field. So, even though I know Brock Hoffman, he's going to be our starter, and most of his reps are good, There's some issues with the depth of the offensive line. I thought the offensive line might actually be a little bit better going into the season than what they showed today. But I'll tell you one guy who showed something today, Cooper Beebe. His snaps were great. There was no problem with his snaps. He was great with his power. He played guard some, he played center some, and he was great at both positions. So if you're asking this guy, I think Cooper Beebe took a little bit more of a step forward today as far as the center competition, and I think Brock Hoffman took a little bit of a step back. If we're looking at only the first quarter, then okay, we'll give Hoffman a little bit of a nod, but it's not only the first quarter. It's a complete game. And I do think that Brock Hoffman took a little bit of a step back in the center competition today. Wouldn't be surprised here if we see in the next week or so Cooper Beebe getting a little bit more reps with the ones. His snaps were fine, whether they were under center, whether they were shotgun snaps. His power was good. Not too much miscommunication was in there. That pressure that Awesome Richards allowed, that was while Cooper Beebe was lined up at center, but it looked like Awesome Richards just kind of let the guy go. So there is some of that as well. Some of the linebackers, Maris Leofau, he looked good today. I think he looked good because of Mozzie Smith. So whenever somebody starts to try to pile on Mozzie Smith this week, let them know they probably didn't watch that Rams game because Mozzie Smith was getting in people. I don't want to say anything too bad. I want to watch my mouth here a little bit, but he was getting up in them. So that allowed the linebackers to flow freely. Did get to see Overshown today. He made a nice tackle for no gain or maybe a loss on the defense's right, the offense's left. When they were running the running back to that side, he made a break for it. He was fast, he was decisive, and boom, it was pretty much over. We got to also see some of the unknown guys on the roster. I had a note that number 84, and I didn't even know who number 84 was, but late in the game, he was making plays, man. And I was like, oh my God, who's this kid? He came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden he's making plays in the fourth quarter. Now, it was only 2 catches, so, I'm not getting too excited. But in the same, voice of this, he was catching passes when other receivers weren't necessarily catching passes. Racey McMath had 2 bad drops late in the game. Trey Lance hit him in the hands twice. And one was on second down, which would have been a first down, and one was on third down, which would have been a first down. And he dropped them both. And this was a person who, in practice, was the person that Trey Lance had the most chemistry with and was making the most connections with. So it's interesting to see how when I talk about how we get to see sometimes in practice, these receivers are making plays, they're catching passes, they're looking great, and then all of a sudden we get to the games and nothing. Same thing for Tyron Billy Johnson. Tyron Billy Johnson didn't show up at all today. There wasn't one play that I can remember that Tyron Billy Johnson made, save the last kickoff, where it looked like he might have a little bit of a hole to do something, and then that closed up right away. So it's interesting, keeping an eye on these guys. I think Tyron Billy Johnson's stock is down. I think Trey Lance's stock is flat. I think Cooper Beebe's stock is up. I do think Brock Hoffman's stock is down. I do think Malik Davis's stock is flat. Nathaniel Pete got some run late in the game, but he didn't do much to speak of. So I think his stock is flat to down. I don't even remember seeing a number 40 fullback / halfback / tight end. I don't even think he played today. He didn't stand out at all. So Muhammad made some plays late in the game, but that was against third and fourth teamers. So all in all, it was one of those games where it was up and down. Eric Scott had an up and down game. There were times where he was allowing catches for first downs. He got a pretty bad penalty when somebody ran out of bounds and he hit him late. But then turn around 2 plays later, he has an interception, right? So kind of an up and down. He is a second-year guy. Some of those things you expect to see. But all in all, when we're talking about we're looking for some successes for certain guys and what it looks like to be a successful day, some people had a successful day. Trey Lance, I wanted to see him lead a touchdown drive. That didn't happen. But all in all, I think he had an up and down day, a little bit more good than bad. But Now it's going to be what happens next week. What happens when they go into their second preseason game? Are we going to see improvement from some of these guys? Because some of these guys haven't gotten NFL action ever. Some of the guys have. Some of them are second and third year players like Mozzie Smith. Mozzie Smith stock up, But I want it for Hokel stock up. I didn't even expect to notice the guy, but I noticed the guy. So just want to see how this carries over now into this week of practice and getting ready for a second preseason game and seeing how these guys react. I think this is going to be a little bit of a shorter week. I think the Cowboys don't actually have a preseason game on Sunday next week. I think it's either Thursday or Friday. So they'll have a little bit less time to prepare. You probably won't see any veterans in that one either. But I'll have more of this breakdown tomorrow once I get to really dig into the game film and get to see a little bit more of maybe some of the things that I missed. There were certain plays where I was watching specifically defensive line, specifically second level linebackers, specifically safeties. So I'll get to go through and kind of take a look at a little bit of everyone as a whole and get you a little bit more of stock up, stock down. I wanted to keep this short and sweet. That didn't quite work out as well. So, again, thank you for tuning in. J Mill, your host. J Miller if you like. If you like the video, subscribe, hit a like as well. If there's anything specifically you want me to cover, let me know. Comment below. But until then, this has been J Mill, Knockers on the Bottom. Peace.